Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. This is section A of chapter 2, the moral foundations of knowledge. We'll explain the illusion of objectivity. Our goal in this course is to rebuild the discipline of statistics on the foundations of Islamic epistemology. The current discipline is built on logical positivist theories of knowledge, which basically says that knowledge is science and nothing else. But the problem is that positivists do not understand what science is. Now, from the point of view of Islamic epistemology, knowledge is of two types, useful and useless. Useful knowledge helps us on our path towards the recognition of God and the manifestations of God in this universe. And this involves basically, as we do this, we develop as human beings. Useful or harmless, useless or harmful knowledge prevents the development of our human capabilities. Now, science is knowledge of external reality, while Islam teaches us about our own hidden potentials, which is our inner reality. So there's a dramatic mismatch between the theories of knowledge of West and those of Islam. One of the key elements of logical positivism is the fact-value distinction. According to positivism, facts are objective. They provide information about external reality, which is the same for all observers. So if we say something about external reality, this can be empirically tested and verified or falsified, proven wrong. In contrast to this, values are subjective. They provide internal information about our emotional responses to various types of scenarios. These vary from person to person and change across time. So according to positivism, this is not part of knowledge and this is not science. Positivist epistemology values facts and considers values as unimportant, meaningless, not part of knowledge. In contrast to this, because Islam is concerned with developing us as human beings, it considers our values to be the most important. These values make us who we are, and changing these values is part of our spiritual journey. Contrary to what positivism teaches, all human knowledge is built on values. There are no objective facts of the kind that positivists value. And all of social sciences in general and statistics in particular are built on subjective values. Now, because there is a commitment to positivism in Western education, the assertions of knowledge are claimed to be value-free. They pretend to be objective and value-free. But from Islamic epistemology, we know that all human knowledge is built on moral foundations. So one of our main tasks is to look at an apparently objective statement and to uncover the hidden values behind this statement. So one of the skills that this course will focus on is to uncover hidden norms beneath apparently objective facts. One of the greatest illusions which is used to deceive us into thinking of statistics as objectivity is the idea that numbers are objective. Numbers don't lie. Once you have given the statistical information, then there is no further argument. In contrast to this, the book How to Lie with Statistics has more sales than all other textbooks of statistics combined. There are actually two kinds of numbers. It's important to understand this. There are simple counts. How many textbooks? How many trees in a forest? How many students in this class? But then, and these simple counts are in fact objective and factual and the same for everybody. But there are more complex counts, and these are the ones that are most often used. And these more complex counts always incorporate subjective judgments, but because they look like simple counts, they look like numbers, they carry this illusion of objectivity. So to explain this further, consider the idea that number of sales is greater than that of all other statistics textbooks. So we can actually go and count how many books were sold. Now, even when you have simple counts, there are many ways to dispute the argument, many fudge factors. But I'm going to bypass this for the moment. We have to look at through the number to ask what is the argument that is being made by this number. So when we say that the number of sales of this textbook is greater, we are actually making an argument. And what we are saying is that the statistics is often used to lie and deceive. Now, actually, is it true that if How to Lie with Statistics is sold very often, it's very popular, does it mean that statistics is often used to lie and deceive? And not necessarily. We can argue one way or the other way. I would like to argue that yes, statistics is often used to deceive, but this number is just one clue and it can be interpreted in many different ways. So to make the argument, I would have to put in a lot more effort. One of the key concepts of this course is to reconceive of the subject of statistics as rhetoric. Rhetoric is the art of making arguments. So if we want to find out the values which are underneath, concealed within statistics, we have to look at the argument being made by the number. All statistics are used as arguments, but they are cloaked, masked in objectivity. Now, simple counts are objective, as we have said, but complex counts borrow objectivity. They have the appearance of objectivity and the appearance of being indisputable facts, but if you examine them closely, and that's what our task is going to be, to examine claims of objectivity, we will find there are many, many weaknesses. Our goal in this course is to learn how to make arguments and counter arguments with numbers, not so much how to manipulate numbers. One of the most important arguments made today is about prosperity of countries, the wealth of nations. So today we use the GDP or the GNP, but and once we say that okay, the GNP of Sweden or Switzerland is very high and the GDP of Nigeria is very low, that means that we have established that Switzerland is much more wealthy than Nigeria. But is this really the case? Is the country Switzerland more prosperous than Nigeria? Well, there are many ways to dispute this argument. The historical record shows that dominant powers have always used measures which prove that they are the leaders. So, for example, when England was the world leader, England defined prosperity in terms of trade and naval power, and GDP was not used. It was only after the rise of America, which had the greatest GDP in the world, that they started to use GDP, because America was a relatively insular country. It didn't have too much in terms of global trade or naval power. So use of those measures would have reduced the importance of America. But suppose we want to create an alternative measure of prosperity which uh, would favor Islamic countries, then we would focus on family, community, faith, meaning of life, suicides, alcoholism, and all of these would put us far ahead. So, which of these measures is the right measure of prosperity? This is a subjective matter, not an objective matter. We can look at another context. We can ask which is the best university? And the main insight that I would like the students to understand here is that there is no answer to this question. Um, so if somebody asks us this question, we must ask another question. What is the purpose of this comparison? So there is a barefoot university which caters to illiterate and peasants. So is this a bad university? No, I think it would be considered the best university for the poor and the illiterate. Is Harvard the best university? Well, in what sense? It is. It has a high reputation, so we can say that it is best in terms of maintaining a very good reputation. Does it provide the best education? Well, not necessarily. Most people on the planet would not benefit from going to Harvard. And one of the lectures, introductory lectures for undergraduates by Michael Sandel on murder and cannibalism, is actually meant to brainwash students into saying that morality doesn't really exist. No, there's no absolute morality, and we can kill people if it is necessary to do so. And we can do cannibalism if it is necessary for survival. So the implicit argument being made is very harmful for personal development. So one could say that going to Harvard is not good for your development as a human being. One of the crucial elements of the way that statistics is used to deceive people is the distinction between theory and practice. When we take statistics and we use it to make real world arguments, then it's possible to see what the argument is that is being made and to offer a counter argument. But if we just do theory with no application, then it seems isolated, it's floating in the air, and it seems like there is no moral foundation. So, for example, World Bank publishes World Development Indicators. It's just a collection of numbers. Where are the moral foundations? What is the argument being made? It's not easy to see through that. But actually, what's happening is that the World Bank is acquiring authority as the central place where we acquire data. In fact, if you think about it, statistics are very expensive to collect. Go through all the nation and count the number of people. Very, very expensive, billions of dollars. So only concepts which are worth measuring are measured. But who decides what is worth measuring and what is not? You will find a lot of measures of wealth, but very few measures of poverty. Why? Because poverty is not considered worth measuring, hunger is not worth measuring, but the amount of wealth is considered worth measuring. This is a very strong pro capitalist bias hidden in the numbers. So, one of the goals of this course is to teach students to hunt for concealed values behind apparently objective statistics. So, we know that college rankings are published every year, and nearly every country has some version of these. So some criteria are used to rank colleges. So the question is, who chose this criteria and what are they trying to prove? And what alternatives are available? And very, very often, people use numbers which are available. And even though everybody knows that this is not the right number, they say, okay, we can't measure that, so let's use what is measurable. So we shift from what is really needed to what is easily available. So is this a good thing to do? We will show that this causes a lot of harm. Focusing on observable is always harmful, and what we choose always brings in values into the picture, whether we like it or not. Very often, the thing that we want to measure cannot be reduced to numbers, like corruption. This is a quality of the soul. Intelligence, again, this is an abstraction, not easily measurable at all. What is the value of research? Again, this is a qualitative unknown. But sometimes we are forced to assign numbers to these. But sometimes too much emphasis on these numbers can cause a lot of damage instead of creating benefit. We will look at corruption rankings and college rankings later in lectures in this course. So we conclude with some examples of how we can incorporate values into apparently objective numbers. So the student faculty ratio is often used in measuring college quality. Now, is this a good measure? Well, if you think about how much attention each student gets, then low student faculty ratios are good. If you have fewer students in the class, then each student gets a lot more attention and presumably gets a better education. But if we are thinking from the point of view of the Higher Education Commission, we're thinking about service being provided to the nation, then the opposite is true. A college is spending a lot of resources in teaching a very few students if the student faculty ratio is low. And if we have a lot more students per faculty, then we are providing a lot more service to a lot more students with a lot fewer resources. So high student faculty ratio is good. So again, what is the purpose for which we are looking at this number determines whether it's good or bad. And the same number can have opposite meanings in different contexts. As a final example, consider three students, one of whom is very good in English, the other is very good in math, and the third one has moderate scores in both SATs, English and math. So if we ask which one is the best student, there is no answer. Aisha is best in English, Bilal is best in math, and Jamal is best at both. If we ask which one is most intelligent, again, there is no answer to this question. If we ask who should be admitted, again, it depends. If we are teaching, have a technical university and we want to produce engineers, then maybe Bilal is good. If we are looking for creative writers, then Aisha is good. If we're looking for general all-rounders, then Jamal is good. Uh, there is no answer to this question of which is the best student. The question is, why are we choosing a best student? And very, very specific and specialized details are necessary to answer this question. There is no correct answer to this question. So some final remarks. When we separate theory from practice, and that's normally done in textbooks, then because we are not working in the real world, it becomes possible to hide values. In fact, theory cannot be separated from practice. This is one of the main assertions of what we call real statistics. Real statistics says that statistics has to be done in the real world. It cannot be done in pure theory. Now, if we look at modern textbooks, they teach theories without practical applications. Now, in fact, in textbooks, you see some pseudo applications. You see that real data sets are being used and real questions are being answered. But if you look closely, you see that these are just toys. These are just illusions. You're not really actually solving real world problems which have concrete policy implications. So when you teach pure theory without any real applications, this confuses and demotivates students because it's just a body of knowledge which doesn't have any applications to anything they are familiar with. Our textbook on real statistics will do statistics in the context of real world applications. And the main issue in context of this chapter is that when you look at a statistical argument in a real world context, the moral questions immediately arise, and the values which are embedded in statistical arguments become very clear. And that's basically what we're saying, that all knowledge is built on moral foundations.